Welcome to Ethoria Channel.
The most powerful person in any room never speaks first. You've been living backwards, chasing noise when silence holds all the answers, seeking validation when indifference is your greatest weapon. What if I told you that everything you think makes you strong actually makes you weak? This isn't a story for your eyes, no clips, no effects, just a voice and silence in between. If it helps, the words appear on screen as well. Stay. Because maybe you need a space that doesn't demand anything from you. Not another screen, pouring out more information, but a voice that asks, "How are you, really?" If your heart and thoughts often move at different speeds, this is your moment to bring them back into rhythm. Week, 7 days, 5 habits, complete transformation. But here's the paradox that will disturb you. The habits that changed my life require you to do less, not more. Before we dive into these life-changing principles, subscribe to this channel. You'll receive this level of transformative content daily. Philosophy that actually changes lives, not just empty motivational noise. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But you don't realize this, do you? You're giving your power away. Every notification, every reaction, every time you explain yourself to people who never asked. Today, we reclaim it. Day 1 changed everything, and it started with a single question that Epictetus posed 2,000 years ago. Is this within my control or outside my control? Simple question, world-changing answer. Here's what I discovered. 99% of your suffering comes from trying to control things that were never yours to control. That person who didn't text back? Outside your control. The traffic that made you late? Outside your control. What your boss thinks about your presentation? Outside your control. The weather ruining your plans? Outside your control. Your reaction to all of these? Completely within your control. But you've been doing it backwards your entire life. You've been a slave to external circumstances while ignoring the one thing you actually have dominion over: your mind. The Stoics called this the discipline of perception. It's not about being emotionless. It's about being selective with your emotions. It's about understanding that your initial thought about any situation is often wrong, and your reaction is always a choice. I started practicing this on day 1. Every time something happened that would normally trigger me, I asked myself, can I control this outcome directly? If the answer was no, I practiced what Marcus Aurelius called the art of acquiescence, not passive acceptance, active indifference. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of your problems exist only in your mind. They're not real problems, they're perception problems. Your ex posting pictures with someone new? That's not a problem. That's information that has nothing to do with your life now. Getting passed over for a promotion? That's not rejection. That's redirection towards something better aligned with your path. Someone talking behind your back? That's not betrayal. That's them revealing their character while you remain untouched. This shift in perception changes everything. When you stop fighting reality, you stop suffering. When you stop trying to control outcomes, you start controlling your responses. And your responses determine your life. By the end of day 1, I had already stopped checking my phone obsessively. Why? Because I realized that other people's urgency is not my emergency. Their emotional state is not my responsibility. Their need for immediate response is not my obligation. The Stoics understood something modern psychology is just catching up to. Stimulus and response are not connected. There's a space between them. In that space lies your freedom. Viktor Frankl, who survived the concentration camps, wrote, Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. This is your first lesson in reclaiming your power. Stop reacting to everything. Start responding to what matters. But here's what nobody tells you about this practice. It will make other people uncomfortable. When you stop being predictably reactive, when you stop feeding into drama, when you stop being emotionally available for every crisis, people will notice. They'll call you cold. They'll say you've changed. They'll test you to see if they can still push your buttons. Let them. Your emotional equilibrium is not a public resource. Your peace is not community property. Your energy is not a renewable resource for others to drain. This brings us to a critical realization that leads directly into habit number 2. Day 2 revealed something that contradicts everything you've been taught about communication. The less you speak, the more powerful you become. But this isn't about being antisocial or mysterious for the sake of drama. This is about understanding that your words are currency, and most people are spending theirs like they're worthless. Lao Tzu wrote, "Those who know do not speak, those who speak do not know." You've been doing the opposite, speaking to fill silence, explaining yourself to people who didn't ask, justifying your decisions to those who have no authority over your life. Strategic silence is not the absence of communication. It's the presence of intentional communication. Every word has weight. Every response has purpose. Every silence sends a message. Here's what I started practicing on day 2. I stopped explaining myself. Someone asks why I didn't respond to their text immediately. Silence. Someone questions my decision about my own life. I've made my choice. Someone tries to drag me into gossip or drama. Interesting. Then nothing more. This isn't rudeness, this is boundaries. This is understanding that your time and energy are finite resources, and most conversations are energy vampires disguised as social obligations. The Stoics practiced something called economy of words. Speak only when your words can improve upon the silence. If what you're about to say doesn't add value, solve a problem, or express genuine appreciation, don't say it. But here's where it gets profound. When you stop filling every silence, you start noticing what others reveal in those moments. People become uncomfortable with silence, and they start talking, really talking. They reveal their insecurities, their motivations, their true intentions. Silence becomes your superpower because it forces others to show their cards while you keep yours hidden. In negotiations, the person who speaks first usually loses. In arguments, the person who stays calm controls the frame. In relationships, the person who needs the conversation least has the most power. This isn't manipulation. This is natural law. Energy flows from those who give it freely to those who receive it selectively. I stopped being available for every conversation. I stopped responding to every comment. I stopped defending every misunderstanding. The result? People started valuing my words more because they came less frequently. My opinions carried more weight because I shared them sparingly. My presence became more impactful because my absence had meaning. But the real transformation happened internally. When you stop constantly expressing your thoughts, you start observing them. When you stop reacting to every stimulus, you start choosing your responses. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Your new beginning requires ending your old pattern of verbal reactivity. It requires the death of your need to be heard in every conversation, understood in every interaction, validated in every exchange. This leads to an uncomfortable realization. Most of your communication has been about seeking approval, not sharing value. You explain yourself because you want to be understood. You justify your choices because you want them validated. You fill silences because you're uncomfortable with the space where judgment might live. But what if the judgment doesn't matter? What if understanding is overrated? What if approval is actually limitation in disguise? When you need people to understand you, you give them power over your peace. When you need them to approve of your choices, you give them authority over your life. When you need to fill every silence, you give away the mystery that makes you interesting. Strategic silence is strategic power. It's the understanding that your thoughts don't need an audience, your decisions don't need approval, and your presence doesn't need explanation. This naturally leads to the third habit, which might be the most challenging of all. Day 3 destroyed my comfort zone completely, and that's exactly what needed to happen. The Stoics had a practice called voluntary discomfort, deliberately choosing the harder path not because you have to, but because it makes you stronger. Taking cold showers when you could have hot ones, walking when you could drive, fasting when you could feast. Modern life has made you soft. Every inconvenience is immediately solved. Every discomfort is instantly avoided. Every challenge is outsourced or eliminated. And in doing so, you've eliminated your ability to handle real adversity when it inevitably arrives. Seneca regularly practiced poverty. Not because he was poor, but because he wanted to remove the fear of poverty. He slept on the floor, ate simple food, wore basic clothes. He wanted to prove to himself that he could lose everything material and still be fundamentally okay. This isn't about becoming ascetic. This is about becoming anti-fragile. It's about building your capacity to thrive under pressure instead of merely surviving comfort. I started small on day 3. Cold shower instead of hot, stairs instead of elevator, walking to places I usually drive, saying no to social events I didn't genuinely want to attend. But the real practice was emotional discomfort, sitting with anxiety instead of immediately distracting myself, feeling anger without expressing it, experiencing loneliness without immediately reaching for connection. Here's what nobody tells you about emotional discomfort. It's not dangerous, it's informational. Your feelings are not facts, they're feedback. And when you stop running from uncomfortable feelings, you start learning from them. You're anxious. What is this anxiety protecting you from? What growth are you avoiding? You're angry? What boundary has been crossed? What value has been threatened? You're lonely? What connection with yourself are you lacking? What self-sufficiency do you need to develop? The Stoics understood that suffering is inevitable, but misery is optional. Pain is unavoidable, but your interpretation of pain determines whether it strengthens or weakens you. Marcus Aurelius faced plague, war, betrayal, and personal loss. His private journal, which became meditations, wasn't filled with complaints. It was filled with strategies for finding meaning in difficulty, strength in struggle, growth in adversity. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Your obstacles are not blocking your path. They are your path. Every challenge is a curriculum. Every difficulty is a degree program in becoming the person you need to be. But modern culture teaches the opposite. It teaches you to avoid discomfort, minimize challenge, and seek the path of least resistance. It promises that happiness comes from having fewer problems, when the truth is that fulfillment comes from developing the capacity to handle more complex problems. On day 3, I stopped avoiding difficult conversations. I called the person I'd been meaning to confront. I had the discussion I'd been postponing. I addressed the issue I'd been hoping would resolve itself. The conversation was uncomfortable, but the discomfort lasted 20 minutes. The relief lasted all day. The self-respect lasts forever. I stopped avoiding physical discomfort too. I did the workout I'd been skipping. I took the walk in cold weather. I chose the difficult task at work instead of the easy one. Each voluntary discomfort was a vote for the person I wanted to become. Each easy choice I rejected was a rejection of the person I used to be. But here's the deeper truth. Comfort is not neutral. Comfort is decay. When you're not growing, you're dying. When you're not being challenged, you're being weakened. When you're not moving towards something difficult, you're moving away from your potential. The practice of voluntary discomfort reveals something profound about human nature. You're capable of far more than you think. Your limits are mostly mental. Your capacity is mostly untested. Your potential is mostly unexplored. But you won't discover this staying within your comfort zone. You won't develop strength avoiding challenge. You won't build character choosing convenience. Every time you choose the easy option, you train yourself to be weak. Every time you avoid discomfort, you increase your sensitivity to it. Every time you take the path of least resistance, you decrease your capacity for future resistance. The inverse is also true. Every time you choose difficulty, you increase your tolerance for challenge. Every time you embrace discomfort, you expand your comfort zone. Every time you take the harder path, you build the strength to handle whatever path life forces you onto. This understanding leads directly to the fourth habit, which is about reclaiming your most valuable resource. Day 4 was the day I realized I had been living someone else's life. Not because I was copying them, but because I was letting them direct my attention. Your attention is your life. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. Where your energy flows, your results grow. Where your results grow, your identity forms. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your circumstances. You are where you place your attention. And right now, your attention is being hijacked, commodified, and sold back to you as entertainment. The Stoics understood this 2,000 years before smartphones existed. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." Not because the present is always pleasant, but because it's the only place where your power exists. You cannot change the past, no matter how much attention you give it. You cannot control the future, no matter how much anxiety you invest in it. You can only influence this moment, but only if your attention is actually here. Where is your attention right now? If you're honest, it's probably fragmented across 17 different concerns, none of which you can actually address in this moment. You're thinking about a conversation from yesterday while planning tomorrow's meeting, while worrying about next month's deadline, while processing a news story that has nothing to do with your actual life. This is not living. This is mental chaos, disguised as productivity. This is attention poverty disguised as being informed. This is mental slavery disguised as staying connected. On day 4, I did something radical. I stopped consuming content that didn't directly improve my life or align with my values. No more random YouTube videos. No more endless scrolling. No more reading articles about problems I can't solve and events I can't influence. I stopped following people whose content made me feel worse about myself or my life. I unfollowed accounts that consistently triggered comparison, envy, or anxiety. I removed news apps from my phone. Not because I don't care about the world, but because most news is designed to capture attention through fear, outrage, and helplessness. It's emotional junk food. I started practicing what Cal Newport calls attention residue management. When I finished one task, I took 30 seconds to mentally close it before starting the next. No task switching without conscious transition. I implemented the single tasking rule. One thing at a time, complete presence, full attention. No multitasking, which is actually rapid task switching that degrades the quality of everything you do. But the real practice was learning to notice when my attention was being pulled. The moment I felt the urge to check my phone, I paused and asked, what am I avoiding right now? What discomfort am I trying to escape? Usually I was avoiding boredom, anxiety, or the effort required for deep focus. The phone wasn't solving these issues. It was temporarily distracting me from them while making them worse. Blaise Pascal wrote, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." You cannot sit quietly in a room alone. You cannot be bored for 5 minutes without reaching for stimulation. You cannot be alone with your thoughts without immediately seeking distraction. This is not a personality trait. This is addiction. You are addicted to external stimulation because you've lost the ability to generate internal satisfaction. The Stoics practiced what they called prosos, continuous attention to the present moment. Not meditation as a separate practice, but attention as a way of life. Being fully present to whatever you're doing, whether it's eating, walking, working, or thinking. When you guard your attention, everything changes. Your work improves because you're actually present for it. Your relationships deepen because you're actually there for them. Your peace increases because you're not mentally living in 17 different timelines simultaneously. But guarding your attention requires saying no. No to most opportunities. No to most requests. No to most entertainment. No to most conversations that don't serve your higher purpose. This makes people uncomfortable. They're used to having access to your attention whenever they want it. They're used to your presence being a renewable resource they can draw from without consideration. When you start protecting your attention like it's precious because it is, others will notice. They'll call you antisocial. They'll say you've become distant. They'll accuse you of thinking you're better than them. Let them think what they want. Your attention is your life, and your life is not a public utility. Epictetus taught, wealth consists in not having great possessions, but in having few wants. Attention wealth consists in not having great stimulation, but in having few distractions. The person who can focus on one thing completely is infinitely more powerful than the person who can juggle 20 things superficially. This understanding of attention as life force leads to the final habit, which integrates everything we've discussed. Day 5 changed my relationship with time forever. And it started with 3 Latin words that the Stoics used to remind themselves of the most important truth. Memento mori. Remember you will die. This isn't morbid. This is liberating. This is the ultimate perspective shift that makes everything else possible. You're going to die. So is everyone you love. So is everyone you hate. So is everyone whose opinion you're desperately seeking. So is everyone you're trying to impress. This fact should terrify you into action, not paralyze you into inaction. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live." You're not living, you're existing. You're going through motions, following scripts, playing roles that someone else wrote for you. You're saving your real life for later. You're waiting for permission to be yourself. You're postponing your dreams until conditions are perfect. You're treating your life like a dress rehearsal for some future performance that's never going to come. But what if today was your last day? What would matter then? What would you focus on? What would you ignore? Who would you spend time with? What would you say? What would you do? More importantly, what would you stop doing? On day 5, I started living each day as if it might be my last. Not in a reckless way, but in an intentional way. I stopped saving my good energy for special occasions. I stopped postponing important conversations. I stopped waiting for perfect conditions to start meaningful projects. I called my parents not because I had to, but because time with them is finite. I told people I cared about them while they could still hear it. I started the creative project I'd been planning for years, but the real transformation was internal. When you truly accept that your time is limited, you stop wasting it on things that don't matter. You stop arguing with people about politics online. You stop trying to convince people who don't want to be convinced. You stop explaining yourself to people whose understanding won't change your life. You stop worrying about what people think of your choices because their opinions will be forgotten, while the consequences of your choices will define your legacy. The Stoics practiced negative visualization, imagining loss to increase appreciation for what you currently have. What if you lost your health tomorrow? What would you appreciate about your body today? What if you lost your family tomorrow? How would you interact with them today? This isn't pessimism. This is realism that leads to gratitude, that leads to presence, that leads to fulfillment. Seneca wrote, "Every day and every hour ought to be stripped of every illusion, the illusion that you have unlimited time, the illusion that perfect conditions are coming, the illusion that you'll feel more ready tomorrow than you do today, the illusion that your fears will disappear instead of being faced, the illusion that your dreams will manifest without effort. When you live as if you're already dead, you stop fearing death and start fearing a wasted life. You stop avoiding risk and start avoiding regret. You stop protecting your comfort and start protecting your potential. But here's the paradox that completes our journey. When you stop being afraid of death, you stop being afraid of life. When you accept that everything is temporary, you start appreciating what's eternal. When you embrace the inevitability of ending, you discover the possibility of beginning. The 5 habits work together as a system. You cannot truly guard your attention without embracing discomfort. You cannot practice strategic silence without controlling your reactions. You cannot live as if you're dying without accepting what you cannot control. Each habit reinforces the others. Each practice deepens your understanding of Stoic philosophy, not as ancient wisdom, but as practical psychology for navigating modern chaos. 7 days, 5 habits, complete transformation. But here's what you need to understand. This isn't really about changing your life in a week. This is about changing your relationship with your life permanently. The person who started this video is not the person finishing it. The consciousness that began this journey is not the consciousness that will continue it. You now understand that strength comes from control, not force. That power comes from silence, not noise. That growth comes from discomfort, not convenience. That life comes from attention, not time. That meaning comes from mortality, not permanence. These are not habits to try. These are principles to embody. These are not techniques to practice occasionally. These are ways of being to integrate completely. The Stoics didn't practice philosophy as an intellectual exercise. They practiced it as a survival strategy. They understood that life is difficult, unpredictable, and often unfair. They developed these tools not to escape reality, but to engage with it more effectively. You have the same tools now. The question is, will you use them? Will you stop reacting to everything that triggers you and start responding to what actually matters? Will you stop explaining yourself to everyone and start living with quiet confidence? Will you stop avoiding discomfort and start seeking growth? Will you stop letting others direct your attention and start protecting your life force? Will you stop living as if you have forever and start living as if today matters? The choice is yours. The power has always been yours. The only question is whether you'll claim it. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, reminded himself every morning. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. Your work as a human being is not your job title or your social role. Your work as a human being is becoming the person you were meant to be before the world told you who you should be. This work begins now. This work begins with you. This work begins with a single decision to stop living someone else's life and start living your own. The Stoics would tell you, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. The best time to change your life was years ago. The second best time is right now. Welcome to your transformed life. The world is waiting to see who you become when you stop caring what the world thinks. The journey continues. The choice is yours. Remember, When you become unavailable to everything, you become essential to what matters.